Hey guys, this is SpongeBob SquarePants and VeggieTales for the win here, and welcome back to another movie review. And this time, I'm going to do a movie review on the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, which technically came out in 2021 because I live in America and this was released in America in 2021. This was originally supposed to come out in 2020 in America in theaters, but unfortunately, due to that bad, COVID-19 pandemic, the movie was delayed to 2021 in America and got released on, like, streaming instead. I was upset when the theatrical release for US got canceled. It was released in theaters but in Canada only, which I'm hoping Paramount eventually decides to release this movie in theaters for first time here in the US. I really hope so, because I really want to go see this movie in theaters for sure. But yeah, this movie I have on Blu-ray is actually a Canadian copy for the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run. But yeah, I'm calling this a 2021 review since I have in America and it came out in America in 2021. Yeah. Yeah, this is a Canadian Blu-ray, but obviously it works well in my country, so yeah. But anyways, it is the third SpongeBob movie. Let's get on with the review. So basically, this movie is about where SpongeBob has a happy life in Bikini Bottom with his friends and his pet snail Gary, and one day, King Poseidon, who was the main antagonist in this movie, who was, of course, and he wants another snail. And so Plankton does a trick where he kidnaps Gary to get SpongeBob out of there and give Gary to King Poseidon. And SpongeBob knows that Gary is missing, and he must go with Patrick to the lost city of Atlantic City to get Gary back from King Poseidon, basically. Yep. From King Poseidon. And okay, yeah, and SpongeBob and Patrick get some help along the way, even from a sage, talking sage, whose name is Sage, of course. So yeah, basically, and so yeah, and SpongeBob and Patrick eventually get to Atlantis, but they get distracted and lose focus. But they still gotta get Gary back. They try to get Gary back from King Poseidon, but King Poseidon, he wanted to rename Gary, thought his name was Fred, basically. And King Poseidon basically falsely imprisoned SpongeBob and Patrick and wanted to sentence them to death. And Sandy, even Squidward and Mr. Krabs get worried about SpongeBob and Patrick, especially SpongeBob. So he must go to the lost city of Atlantic City to rescue him. And basically, while they're there, and this is gonna sound heartwarming, but there was a scene where Patrick and Sandy and even Squidward, Mr. Krabs were saying really nice things about SpongeBob, how he's been a good friend to them and all that. And there were flashbacks of them when they were a kid, where SpongeBob and Patrick and Sandy and Squidward were kids. Yeah, like how they met at Camp Coral when SpongeBob was a kid, and how SpongeBob encouraged Mr. Krabs to open him his own restaurant. That scene was very heartwarming. I really loved that scene so much, by the way. And yeah, basically, King Poseidon would let SpongeBob and the gang go if SpongeBob were to let King Poseidon keep Gary, but he couldn't let him do that. But King Poseidon had a nasty wrinkle. Well, he had a wrinkle at least, but it wasn't really too bad, is what I'm trying to say. And yeah, and King Poseidon realized that, so he let SpongeBob keep Gary, and all those snails that were miserable, they eventually get owners as well. Things end happily in Bikini Bottom, and that's pretty much what the plot is. Now, what do I think of this movie? Well, a lot of people seem to think this is not as. A lot of people seem to consider it as not as good as the first two SpongeBob movies, but in my opinion, I think it's just as amazing. Because just like with the first two movies, this stays very faithful to the show SpongeBob SquarePants. For sure. The story is amazing. I love how SpongeBob and Patrick go to Atlantic the lost city of Atlantis to yeah, yeah, Atlantic City, yeah. Yeah, lost city of Atlantic City. Yeah, to save Gary from King Poseidon. Now, I think I can understand why at least some people think this is a rehash of the SpongeBob SquarePants episode. Have you seen the snail? But the rescue story by rescuing Gary, they did it amazingly in this episode. And plus, at least they have a location in this movie that episode I mentioned, Have You Seen the Snail, doesn't have, which is the lost city of Atlantic City. And yeah, like I said, I especially love the scene where SpongeBob's friends say nice things about him, and those scenes where SpongeBob and met his friends at Camp Coronel. I thought that scene was so heartwarming as heck. Yeah, I love that scene. And I even thought it was amazing where it showed SpongeBob how he met Gary when him and Gary were younger at Camp Coral. That was an awesome scene. And the animation is amazing, the CGI animation. I really love how this movie's fully CGI animated. Unlike the first two movies. The first movie was fully 2D animated, and the second movie was mostly 2D animated but partially 3D animated. Here, this movie's fully 3D animated, which I really love. CGI animation is awesome. As for the characters, awesome as ever, especially SpongeBob, Patrick, Sandy, Square, Mr. Krabs, and Plankton. They're even awesome. They're definitely awesome. All the characters in this movie are awesome. Sage is a funny character as well, and King Poseidon I thought was awesome as the antagonist, which I know he eventually redeemed himself, but still, King Poseidon was awesome. And, which, fun fact, he was voiced by the same person that also voiced Bubbles in the SpongeBob movie Sponge Out of Water. Fun fact. Music is especially awesome. I especially love songs like Agua, yeah, I think I'm saying it right, and Krabby Step, and The Secret to the Formula Is You, I'm pretty sure that's a song. Yeah, which that song, I will admit, The Secret to the Formula Is You, yeah, sung by a lot of characters in the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on a Run. That song is pretty heartwarming. So yeah, okay. Yeah, this movie's definitely perfect and one of my number one favorite movies of all time. I have no issues with this movie whatsoever. So yeah, overall, I give this movie a 5 out of 5, perfect 5-star rating out of 5, and a perfect 10 out, yeah, and a perfect 10 out of 10 rating. Yep, perfect movie. Yep, this is definitely a perfect movie. Yep, 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10 for me for this movie. Perfect movie for sure. Yep, no issues with this movie whatsoever. Okay, so that's my movie review on the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on a Run. I hope you guys enjoy this video. I'll see you on my next video. Goodbye, everybody.